We had discussed about our ERP, what are the ERP vendors, SAP modules, and also have seen the basic SAP sales cycle, which starts with an inquiry, quotation, and till invoice. Then accounts receivables is part of like finance. And also we have seen certain what kind of data that we have: configuration data, customizing data, master data, or transaction data. What are the types of data that we have? And also we also have discussed about the basic system landscape that we had, like what is the basic system landscape that we have. And also we have seen certain menu, like we logged into a system and we had actually seen certain what is a menu bar, what is a toolbar, what is an easy access menu, and so on and so forth. So that was a high level introduction that was required before we start with our session. Now today what we will do is we will anyway catch up all those points in the coming sessions, because we will be seeing the screen and everything. But today we will focus mainly on the sales part. Okay, so we have our sales cycle, so we'll try to focus on the sales cycle as well, log into the system. And I think I have another IDE, but at the moment I will just log into another account of SAP. Okay, so you guys remember, like I don't know, like whenever we log into SAP system, we all, I think you can also just go through the recording. I just explain how do we just log into the system and all. Always remember, as soon as you log in, the menu that you call it is known as the easy access menu. So this is the menu that the end users will work on, basically the users, and and all your transaction data and your master data. Like we said, there are three types of data, right? Transaction data, master data, and configuration customizing data. So the master data and transaction data will be accessible using this easy access menu. And if you go into the tools, and if you go into the customizing and click on this IMG, you have something called an SPRO. If you click on this SPRO and display this, then you come to something called an IMG menu. So this is the menu that all our we functional consultants, or certain technical consultants will have job. But our main job is this part. We will be working mainly on the IMG menu. So we will be setting up in the IMG menu, like we will setting up some some configurations, certain organizational structures, or customizing data, and everything that we set up here in order for the users to work on in their easy access menu. So easy access menu is where in generally you create your master data or your transaction data. It's basically in the real time, it's job of an user, but you will be working in the backend in order to facilitate for them to work in the front end. Like you'll be setting up the plans, you'll be setting up your sales organizations as per the requirements. Then you'll be setting up certain document types, the procedures, like we will talk about them. Don't get confused. Like whatever the changes that you do, for example, he wants to create an inquiry, or he wants to create let's say quotation or a sales order. So there are certain things that are required for him in order to create an inquiry, in order to create a quotation, to make certain fields mandatory, certain fields optional, or in order for him to work on these processes, you will be actually doing the in your IMG menu is what you will be using to do the configurations that is there. Okay, so understand now, this is an easy access menu. And if you just go to the tools, customizing, IMG, and SPRO, then you will come to the IMG menu or an SPRO menu. And also I will request, you will have these recordings with you guys, whenever you wanted to refer. But I also will let you know when we are discussing, right? You also have, please make a note of these, so that it would be easy for you when you refer them. When we are just referring, it would be easy for you. So this is how you go through a path. And if you want to directly, like here you have an option directly, like to give a transaction code as well in this menu, like so if you know the direct transaction code, you can use a direct transaction code, or you can use a menu path, open it and you can go inside. But almost everything will, not everything I would say, most of the master data and the transaction, all the master data and the transaction data will have a transaction code. And in the SPRO menu, certain things will have a transaction code. So transaction code is nothing but, like, for example, if I now you went here, you understand the customizing IMG. If we go here, this will be representing the transaction code SPRO, execute projects. Okay, SPRO is a transaction code, so you can directly go to SPRO, and so that you'll directly come to this menu. You don't need to go through, you don't need to open everything and go through the part. You can use here directly a link. For example, you want to open a master data or a transaction. Let's say if you want to open customer master, we will go through it. Then you go to /n xd03. Okay, when you open this, then it will open your master data that you wanted to display. Okay, and always remember, when you are, let's say, when you are not in the easy access menu, if you are on any other menu, for example, when you are on any other menu, if you use a direct transaction code, for example xd03 or xd04, see, it does not work. So you need to either use, there are two things that we would say. You need to either use something called a /n, sorry, you can use /n preceding, or a /o, sorry, slash, one second, I think my keypad got locked. 1 minute. why why my slash stopped working? Just going to some shortcut keys, I guess. I'll use function. Okay, /n or a /o, I would say, because something wrong with my slash suddenly. Okay, so what what like, or you can use this menu as well, create a new session and all. But basically /n or a /o, why you need this is because, let's say, /n is, always remember, /n, whenever you use a /n, then it closes the current menu and opens a new menu. For example, now I'm in, let's say, SPRO menu. I'm in the SPRO menu. Here, if you can see, there's only one menu that is open. Now, if I use, let's say, if I want to go to a customer master, I know a transaction code is XD03, display of a customer master. Then or I wanted to go to some tables that I wanted to see, maybe SC16N. I wanted to use. Whenever you use this /n, what happens is, you can see this menu. Now there is only one, that is S16N, and my SPRO is no longer available for me, which means it closes the existing menu and it opens the, the new transaction. It opens the current transaction code and it opens the new transaction code that you give here. For example, if you use a /o, then what happens if I now use a /o SPRO? Now what happens now is, if I go to the IMG, whatever it is, now you can see here, both my AC16N is also still available for me to view, and my IMG is also there to available, for me to view. And if I use XD03 again /o, then you have another menu as well. Okay, you can see here. Okay, we don't have any customer master at the moment, so we will just see. So now you have your all the three menus. You will have 1, 2, 3 menus that would be there. So like this, you can open in the system, and also you can use this. If you want to create, you can use this one as well. But you can directly use it whenever you're opening. Always remember /n or a /o, and at a given point of time in SAP logon, whenever you log on, so you can maximum open up to 6 different tabs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And if you try to open one more tab, then system will say maximum number of SAP GA sessions reach. So at a given point of time, you can have 6 sessions open. And in order for you to close one of the sessions and open another session, then you will have to use /n. And if you want to open a new session, if you have if you maybe if you have only some 4 at the moment and you wanted to open a new session, then you can use /o. Clear? So /scenario/o you can use, and you can directly access this transaction codes that would be there. So that's another detail I wanted to give. Now, if you have some questions, just let me know, or else we'll start with our sales process. Okay, we will start with our sales scenario today, and we will mainly discuss about the SD module. What are all the specific things that we would be having? Okay, let's start with the SD modules that we have. So now we are talking about the sales and distribution module, as part of this course mainly. Now, whenever we talk about the SD module, so basically you should understand these terminologies before we actually see it to the system. So in the sales and distribution, okay, in the SD, it consists of mainly three components. Okay, which means this is from the business point of view. You have to understand, from the business point of view, there are actually three different businesses or the departments that would be involved in the sales and distribution. One is called as a sales department, another one is called as a shipping department, another one is called as a billing department. Okay, there are three departments: sales department, shipping department, and billing department. Okay, your SD module mainly consists of three central components here that are here. Then there are optional components. These are all the mandatory ones. You should have a sales cycle, you should have a shipping, you should have a billing. And what the sales department do, sales department are responsible for until the sales order creation, your inquiries, your quotations, your creation of the sales orders, and all this will be taken care by the sales department. So they will be talking to the customers, they will be getting the sales done, and everything they will do on their, it's part of their job, who are mainly interacting with the customers. And what is the shipping department do? Shipping department will take care of the logistics part, your delivery creations, your picking, your packing, you're picking the goods from your warehouse, packing those goods, and again transporting them through, you want to send through ship, you want to send through flight, or you want to send through some, let's say, like road, whatever it is, they will be taking care of all the shipping related functions. Then you have a billing department. Billing department is nothing but, again, some people are responsible for creation of the billings towards the customer, and you have an account receivable, where they will be mainly responsible for getting the collections, following up with the customers. They have in the finance something called a dunning process, so they will actually follow up with the customers to make the payments, receiving the payments, and all this part of the billing department that they will have. So mainly SD consists of these three central components that we have. Okay, apart from these three, we have something called an optional components that we call them like transportation management, credit management, quality management, and warehouse management. These are all not actually some are part of the sales and distribution central component, but not everything. So the transportation management is again another module, which will actually taking care of the transportation process, which is a better way of transporting the goods, to the customer, the cost optimization in the transportation process, and how can you club different deliveries together, and send it towards the customers. So all this will be part of the transportation management, but that's again a different module that we have. And credit management is again, who will be basically this department is mainly responsible for looking at the risk factor from the customer. For example, you give some credits to the customer saying that, okay, you give, let's say, you can pay me in, let's say, 45 days, I'll deliver the goods, and he will have a time, because it's mostly the business to business scenario that you will have, right? In some scenarios they'll have to pay the cash and they'll have to take it, but some of the customers you give them credit. Okay, like your credit card scenario, so you give them a day of, like, say, 45 days time, or you may give some 60 days time. So the credit department is basically those who give, who will assist whether we can give credit for the customers, or he has to pay immediately, or what is his risk factor, and how much is a risky customer, or what kind of a customer is he. So depending upon the customer, and depending upon the relationship that you have with that particular customer, the based on the previous transactions, and how much of open, let's say, he has already placed, let's say, he has a due of almost more, like he has not made a payment for the last 4 5 orders that he has already created. So he's again placing an order. So should you block him, or can we actually proceed ahead and creation of an order and delivery for him? So all this assessment that would be done by the credit management team. So again, the credit management is integration between SD and FI. So we will also talk about in detail. So this is also in ECC, the credit management is part of the SD module. But when we talk about, let's say, I'm just giving you a very simple example. In S4 HANA, there is again a separate module for this called an FSCM, which would be handled separately. So in our ECC, so we SD along with the FI consultants, so we will work on this credit management module together as well. So we will go through its details, when we come to the topic. Then we have the quality management. So quality management is again, like, it's basically another module that we have. It's a, it is kind of integrated mainly with the procurement process, which is your MM as well as your SD process. It's basically, this department is ensuring that the quality check will be done before you deliver to the customer or before you receive the goods from a vendor. So basically they are responsible for the different quality checks. Internally you will see, right, like, whenever you wanted to send the goods, you will do some quality checks if everything is fine. If something is missing, or after the product is manufactured, you will do some quality checks. Okay, if it's if if in case the, let's say, the product is behaving as per what it is intended to do. So there will be a department who will be responsible mainly, to do some quality checks, and they update, if in case the product is a faulty product, or if in case a product is fine, or it has to be, not released for the customer, or it has to be scrapped, or there's some issue and everything. That module is responsible, to do all the quality related stuff. Then you have a module called warehouse management. So this is again another module that we have. So warehouse management is a module where they will be taking care of all the warehouse activities. So in SAP, right, in SAP, the stock could be handled, at both inventory management level and the warehouse management level. But these are all out of SD. But just for your information, I'm just giving you the details. IM is nothing but an inventory management, which is your SAP team will be taking care, and they could maintain a stock at something called a storage location that they have it. So they maintain a stock at storage location level. Whenever they receive the goods from a vendor, you need to store some goods before you deliver to the customers, right? So they do attend something called an inventory management level. Once it is produced, or once some material is produced as well. But if they want to track in much more detail, now for example, if you go to your Big Bazaar or your Walmart, or let's say if you go to your IKEA, now something that newly started, so you will have different rack, different shelves, where we call it mainly in the warehouse management, we call it mainly the storage bins that we have. So you can actually store the stocks not just at a location, but exactly, you can track it in much more in deeper way in warehouse management. So in warehouse management, you will know, okay, in which bin, which in which area. I mean, we will not go through details, but you can track the goods at much more deeper level, where the stock is there, from where the stock has to be picked to deliver to the customer. So that is what that happens in the warehouse management. And warehouse management mainly deals with the, again, to receive the goods and to store the goods in the right places. And whenever the customer needs it, to find a location where exactly is the goods, and to give it to the logistics department in order for them to do the logistics activities to send it to the customer. So because in big warehouses and all, what happens, it's very very difficult to identify a particular product. They scan it, and we don't know if in case, where exactly the stock is located, because the warehouse will be very big. How can they know, okay, in so many, like, thousands and thousands of products, where exactly this particular product is lying? So then they use this particular warehouse management module in order to exactly locate the product that is where it is stored. So these are all kind of the optional modules that you have in the SAP, along with, like the optional components that we call it in the SD. But they're not, they are, certain things are integrated with SD. Certain things, like, credit management is part of the SD in ECC. But rest everything are again, separate modules that we have in SAP. where there are optional. I mean, they're not mandatory to implement. For example, sales, shipping, and billing are mandatory for you to for the SD cycle, but these are all the optional ones. Like transportation management can be there or cannot be there. If your business does not want a transportation management, you can just use LE, logistics execution, and you can just do your process. If you credit management, again, if you have this credit check for the customers, and if your business does not do give any credit, it's always, let's say, it's always like the cash on delivery, you need to pay in advance or something like that, then you don't need but this particular module. Or might be you don't have any quality checks that is there in your company, so all the products, however it is procured, you would be directly, let's say, selling to the customer, then you don't need this particular module. Similarly, let's say you don't have any warehouse, like warehouse is required. As I mentioned, the stock can be also maintained in the inventory management level, which will be handled by the the SAP module. So if in case you don't need to maintain the stock in deep, so you don't have such big warehouses, you will know your stock where it is lying, but the product that you're manufacturing or something very huge, it can be identified very easily. Then you don't need to implement the warehouse management. You can track the stock at the inventory management level itself, which is your SAP in SAP level only they would be able to manage the stock. So these are all the optional modules that you will have that are integrated with the sales and distribution module. Clear so far? Okay.
Yes, sir.
No, yeah. So just let me know, no? If you have some questions, we'll just discuss. But there's just a very high level understanding, so that when we see in the system, you should know all this for you to understand it in much more better way. And whatever we're talking here is from the business point of view, like how the departments are different. For example, now I'm talking about the sales and distribution has three components: sales department, shipping department, and billing department. From business point of view, all three are separate departments. Sales people will not take, or not responsible for the shipping is not responsible for the billing. But from a functional consultant point of view, we are responsible in order to have all these components work together. So you are responsible even for the sales department, you are responsible for the shipping department, also for the billing department, to do the relevant configurations in the background. And also if there are some issues, so we will be also working together in order to resolve all the departments there. But the business contacts would be different. From a business context, there are three departments. From an IT point of view, it's still the SD module that supports all these departments. Okay, right. So let's just get into, this is again, I don't want to go in more theory of it. We'll see in the system, but yeah, it is important, so I'm actually kind of giving you. Now, as I mentioned, the sales department would be doing all these pricing negotiations, the customer services, customer master data maintenance, all the aspects related to the customer will be dealt by the sales department. And shipping department, as I mentioned, they will be mainly managing the picking the goods, packing the goods, and preparing for the shipping documents, and all this is done by the shipping department. And billing department, they are responsible for creation of the billing documents, mailing the bills to the customers, and dunning of outstanding payments is nothing but, dunning is a terminology from an FI. So dunning means it's basically your follow-ups. So they will have a criteria, like if in case the payment is not done, you will have some reminders. Okay, the accounts receivable department, they will have something called a reminders. Okay, after sending the goods, you need to do a first follow-up, or the first email that needs to be triggered after 10 days. Then the next follow-up should be after 15 days. If next follow-up should be another 10 days. If in case the payment is not done, then there has to be a call that needs to be called. So this is mainly for the call center people, or the accounts receivable people, for the initially how they have to follow up with the customer. So they will have some some procedure that they need to follow to receive the payments. So that is nothing but dunning, that you call them, the dunning of outstanding payments, that you call them. Okay, then transportation department is mainly for for the route planning, as I mentioned, mainly for the optimization that they will use. You will have here about the transportation management. Then the credit management is again, as I mentioned, blocking certain, if in case there are more something has to be received, and all, but just go through this because you will have any in the recording. You can just check it. I don't need to just read through all this. Again, the quality management will deal with the quality process that we have here, some quality stock and all that we will be seeing, and releasing and blocking of shipments for the quality reasons and all they will do it. And warehouse management is again, goods receipt is basically done by the and goods issue is done by the SD. Receipt means receiving the goods from the vendor. Issue means selling the goods to the customers. So both are two different process. So warehouse, whenever you receive or you inward movement or an outward movement, or whenever you receive or sending the goods, then you will find from an exact location, from a warehouse that needs to be, and they will have their own strategies, which goods needs to be sent first, which goods needs to be sent next. There's something called FIFO, LIFO. There are some strategies also they will be following in the warehouse management for that. Okay, clear on this? The main base modules you will have to remember: sales, shipping and billing, and optional you will have transportation, you will have your quality, credit management and warehouse and so forth. Okay, now let's get into your organizational structure. So this is our organizational structure that is there for the SAP. Uh, so you'll have to just remember what is the organizational structure. So organizational structure is nothing but, so this whenever you're doing your configuration data in the system, so there will be some guys, can just give me a minute please. I'm sorry, there's someone at my door. I just need to take something. Just give me a minute. I'm sorry. Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so let's just continue. So yeah, you have something called a client. Okay, so client is nothing but it's basically like that represents as a company. So you will have basically client. Again, there is a technical client and you have some other client. So whenever you log into your SAP system, right, whenever you try to log into your SAP system, you have something called, I'm just exiting my screen, I'll just relog in. So whenever you try to log into your SAP system, you have here something called a client, but don't mistake this client with the client that we have in our presentation that we have here. So that client and this client is kind of different. So this is a technical client for you in order to log in. uh, I don't know, did I mention to you guys what is this 800 and so forth? I think in the initial session, I think I have given you, right,
Yes.
what is an 800 client and all.
Yes.
Okay, good. So okay, then this is the technical client that we are just talking about here. Technical client, but the client in terms of system is basically your company. So company is nothing but like, let's say now you have your entity in the SAP. For example, I mean, just let's take example like Tesla that you have, or let's take Reliance, or let's take Tata. So these are all big companies that are there, but like say under Tatas you have multiple companies that are involved, right, who has their separate business operations. For example, Tata has a Tata Motors, like they have their Tata Steel, they have TCS, and they have, let's say, there are multiple companies under under Tata's. Similarly, Reliance have Reliance. Again, Tata has Tanishq, and again something in the retail industry and food industry. Similarly, Reliance also has something. Let's say Reliance Oil and Gas. They have Geo. They have Reliance Retail, Reliance Fresh, and Reliance Smart, or something like that. So they have multiple different companies. I would say company codes. So they're like group of companies, and they become Reliance. So under Reliance, you have actually multiple companies, but all the operations of each company are different. Is it like, for example, if you say how is Geo doing, it has nothing to do with your, with like say the profits that they're showing for the Geo. it has nothing to do with the Reliance Oil and Gas, because oil and gas will show the separate net profit or their quarterly results separately, and Reliance Jio will show it separately. For example, TCS will announce its results quarterly, like how they performed in this particular quarter, it is different. And how much and what Tata Steel does and what Tata Motors does is different. They are all part of the Tata group, but the business operations are entirely different. So they are all separate companies, altogether. But they all fall under one umbrella called Tata. Similarly, Tesla has Tesla cars, Tesla solar, you know and they're all separate companies. And also they have something called the SpaceX. So they're all separate companies that are working, but they fall under the same group called Tesla. Same way, the client here representing that high level group that is there, where you would be able to group these independent business entities. So independent business entities are your company codes. Your company codes, which means, as I mentioned, at the company code level, the balance sheet account or the profit and loss statement, everything is at the company code level, which means whatever the TCS announces its profit and loss, or how much profit it made, and everything has nothing to do with your Tata Steel or your Tata Motors. Tata Motors have their separate profit and loss, so they operate separately, but they all fall under an umbrella called a company. So here the client is representing that particular company, which is again, it's just an entity that groups different company codes together. But for us, this is not a mandatory entity that we will have, but company code is an entity which is again from an accounting point of view, which is which is the central for let's say, which is their important component from an FI point of view. Anything that an FI do will be based on account, will be based on a company code, because company code is where which is kind of a mandatory for everyone. Like, for example, I don't have any group of companies. My business actually operates only, uh, let's say in let's say I don't need to group them together into an umbrella, because I don't have this multiple division. Then you don't need this client. So the company code mainly is dealing with your profits and loss, or whatever your balance sheet, whatever you do, whatever the company announces outside, it's based on your company code that you can remember. And again, you can have multiple company codes. Let's say Tata, let's say TCS can have multiple company codes in case the operation in multiple countries. For example, let's say you have your operations in India, you have your operations in US, you have your operations in Europe, somewhere in Germany, France, or let's say, so you have operations, or in Middle East, so you have operations in multiple places. Then you cannot have with the one company code, because in India you'll have to be showing your balance sheet and your profit and loss in a different way. In US, the way you need to pay your taxes would be different based on your company. In Europe, it has separate rules. So whenever you have the operation in multiple countries, in that case as well, you can have multiple company codes that would be there. So the multiple company codes, you will have in case your operation of business would be different. For example, you can have Tata Steel, Tata Motors, and let's say TCS, like that. You can have, let's say, your company codes be different. And again, if you have multiple, let's say, countries in which the same company also operates, then also you need this multiple company codes that they define in the FI side. So company code is part of the finance team, and the FICO, you call them finance and accounting team. So they will be taking care of the creation of the company code and maintaining the details in the company code in the real time. But because in the demo we don't have any finance consultant, or we will not have any other, like the other functional teams, but for wherever we have integration with FI, whenever we have integration with so we will be also seeing their configurations, and we will also learn some things about the finance configuration, and also on the, let's say, the integration topics, we will also talk about them, okay, when we are talking. So understand the company code will be like, whenever you have operations in multiple countries, or you have operations with multiple lines, you use this. And again, okay, not to confuse you now with much more details of a business, because you need to understand more technically at this point of time, and you can focus on the business on the later point of time as well, but just wanted to give a very a brief high level understanding, because let's say, let's say whenever we are talking about a company code, uh, you know, maybe because I wanted to just keep it in a much more simpler way for you to understand. Let's say you have your okay, we will talk about this maybe in detail, because I think it's better that I explain you in first technically, then we will go to the business terms when we talk about the projects. Because I thought like I will give you now, but might be it may confuse you if I start using more terms than actually the technical thing. So let's not worry about the business terms. We'll talk about it later. But at the moment, just remember you have this company code that you will have to define, and it's a mandatory thing, and it will be done by the FI in the real time. But here we will be working to create a company code and so on and so forth. And for us, the company code is at the highest level. From an accounting point of view, it's an entity that you call it, but the for us the highest organizational unit is the company code. If in case they ask what is the highest organizational unit that you have it, then it's a company code is the highest organizational unit that you have. Under the company code itself, everything will be defined. Okay, so we will have something called plant. You will have okay, just 1 minute. Just let me know once you guys can see my screen back. Can you all see my screen back?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So so far is it clear? The company code. Okay.
Yes.
And under the yeah, you have some questions.
No, just simply, no, I just said it's clear.
It's clear, right? Okay. And maybe I wanted to just you will have something called a client, a group of company that you call it. Under this company, you will have something called a company code. Don't worry about the purchase organization or the purchasing group. That's not for us here, but just wanted to show you. So you will have a group of company. I would say maybe company. Okay. There is something when I typing, I think it went wrong. So you will have something called a client at a company that would be at the highest level that you will have it. And you will have something called a company codes. Basically under this there will be multiple company codes, and each company code, under each company code, here purchase organization I have mentioned, but you can think at it as a sales organization for you, because this is another presentation. But under each company code you will have plants that would be assigned, and sales organization that would be assigned. And again under plant you have storage locations. And we will talk about, forget about this purchase organization, purchasing group. So but just wanted to give you, like, you will have something called the company codes. Under company codes you will define something called a plant, and under plants you will have something called the storage locations. So which means, let's say, the relationship under one company you can have multiple company codes. And again, this is again this relationship, you don't need to worry. And again, each company code will have multiple plants that can be assigned, and one plant can be assigned to only one company code. You cannot assign the same plant to another company code. Under one company code you can have multiple plants. Let's say you have a plant in let's say you're a Tata Motors, you have a plant in or let's say Jamshedpur, you have a plant, or you have one plant somewhere in Gujarat, you have one plant somewhere in Karnataka, you have one plant, like, which means, like, the company, the Tata Motors have multiple plants in multiple places. That is there. Well, but this plant cannot be assigned to your TCS company code, because TCS is separate operation. So under one company code you can have multiple plants, but the same one plant cannot be assigned to multiple company codes. So the relationship between from a company code to a plant is one to many, but from a plant to a company code is one to one. Okay. Similarly, under the plant you will have multiple storage locations. And again, storage locations can be defined in different way. It is just a location inside a plant where you will be storing your goods. Maybe one storage location you will have all your raw materials, in other storage location you will have your finished goods, or one storage location, let's say you're a car manufacturer, then you will store all your tires in one storage location. You can store all your engines in another storage location, maybe paint, like that. You can have multiple locations in a plant where you store certain products. Okay, for example, if you go to some supermarket, you will have food section as one area, so that can be one storage location, and you can have all your meat and in another area, you can have that as a separate storage location. You can have all your beverages, or you can have your drinks and all in one area, that is another storage location. You will have all your this our groceries that you call it in one location, that is another storage location. Fruits and vegetables will be in one location, that's a storage location. So if you consider that supermarket as a plant, in that plant you have multiple locations where you can store the goods in multiple places. So that is called your under each plant you will have multiple storage locations that would be there. Similarly, under a company code you have something called a sales organization, and again, one sales organization can be assigned to one company code, but under one company code you can have multiple sales organizations. Okay, this is not our presentation that we will go through, but just that wanted to give you this high level understanding here. Okay, so now we discussed about the client and the company code. Same way, you have something called under the company code, you will have something called a plant. Plant is nothing but where you manufacture things. It can be your manufacturing or it can be your distribution center as well, but you will represent it as a plant, where you actually goods and all would be getting stored or getting manufactured, or can be distributed from towards the customers or towards the distributors or anything. So the place where you actually do your production activity or a procurement activity is known as a plant. And inside a plant you will have multiple locations where you will be storing the goods in an inventory management, that is called as the storage location. So whenever you wanted to pick some goods to the customers, you go to that particular location, pick the stock and send it to the customers. And where you do your picking and packing activities and all is from that particular location. So the plant is again subdivided into something called a storage location. So under a company code you will have a plant and storage location. That under the plant you will have storage location. Okay, same way, from an SD point of view, you have something called a sales organization. Okay, again, company code is a physical entity. Physical entity means there will be a place where the company code gets registered. Okay, you will have an address of it. You will have an address for a company code saying that, okay, this is my office address, TCS Navi Mumbai. Okay, Mumbai, somewhere in the center they register their office. Maybe Reliance Navi Mumbai, they have their head office. So like same way Tesla, somewhere in California they'll have their head office. So like that, let's say the company code, everything will have its own physical address. So it's a physical entity where the stock where you register your company. Same way, plant is also a physical entity. So you will have a place where the plant is actually located and where the operations of a plant happens. And storage location is again a physical entity inside a plant, okay, where exactly the stock is getting stored and all. But the sales organization, whenever we talk about a sales organization, it's not a physical entity. It's just a virtual entity that you create in the system. It's there inside the system, but not actually located. It's not any a separate location that is there, a sales organization. So in your company, so you will be, you will actually divide based on, like, the sales that you have, based on your customers that you have. You will divide your sales organization. Like, this is just an example that has been given. You can have one sales organization, or you can have multiple sales organizations, saying that, uh, this organization is responsible for, let's say in India also you have south, east, west and north, and there will be one sales organization who is responsible to negotiate with all the persons from the south, another organization for the north, another for the east, another for the west, and like that. So you can have multiple sales organizations inside one company code. But the best practice that is given, from the SAP is to use minimum number of sales organizations that are required. So you don't need multiples. Always minimize your sales or organizations that you create in the system. That is a recommendation from an SAP. So if you want to have multiple sales organization, you can have, let's say, one for your domestic sales and one for your export sales. But just for your example, it has been given here, like how you negotiate with the customers and all, but that's not a recommendation, like to have many sales organizations to be created. So you can have, if you want, maximum of two, let's say one for your exports and one for your domestic sales, but not more than that. But yeah, it's up to the business. It's up to the business operations that they have, up to the sales department, how they inform us, how they want us to create, we will be creating in the system. But as a consultants, we should also have a recommendation towards the customers, towards the clients, basically telling, okay boss, it's better to minimize them, and so on and so forth. Okay, we'll talk about during the project, but understand the base concept of a sales organization. It's basically uh, an organization who is responsible to do some sales deals with the towards the customers. And again, distribution channel is what is the way towards the to reach the customers. Now you can have, maybe you have your own showrooms, for example. Let's say, we'll talk about Reliance, we'll talk about, let's say, Geo, or some Tesla cars or motors, or let's say TCS, whatever it is. So they have their own channel to reach towards the customer, which means they will uh, let's say they will sell it through their own retail outlets, which means it's not going through any middleman. So they set up their own retail outlets, and they directly selling the goods towards the customers. And sometimes they can also go through certain middlemen, they can go through some other middlemen that are available. For example, let's say, some distributors they can go through which it can be going through. There can be some other, let's say a big, let's say a big, let's say, they can, like we have, I'm not able to get some names of these mobile devices and all, where you can have many companies, like we have Purvika or something like that, you have outside, right? So where you can also sell your goods, your SIM cards or your mobile phones through those channels. So what is the channel you wanted to reach to the customer is called as a distribution channel. You can directly sell, you can sell through some some distributors, you can sell through some brokers, or there are multiple channels you can reach, you can sell your goods. So that is called your distribution channel that you will have. So sales organization, a distribution channel, and a division. So division is nothing but the materials, so you group them together as a division. For example, all your cars will be under one division called cars, if in case you're a car manufacturer, or all your mobile phones, if in case of a Geo, are under one division. All your SIM cards is another division. So on a high level, you are grouping different materials that you have together. For example, if in case, they have, let's say if in case you have, you're a car and a bike manufacturer that you have, maybe they will group all the cars together, all the bikes together, or all the food items together. What department does it fall into? Is it a food, or like that? On a high level, you are, let's say, you are combining together, is called as a division. So basically, and again, for you, from a sales department, from a sales point of view, it is very much important to know your sales organization, distribution channel, and division. These are all the mandatory organizational structures that you need to use in order to do any of our sales transaction codes in the system. It is based on sales organization, distribution channel, and division. So sales organization, distribution channel, and division together forms sales area. So you call them sales area. If we ask what is the sales area, then you will have to say, sales area is nothing but your combination of sales organization, distribution channel, and division. Okay, sales area. Sales area is nothing but sales org. I'm just giving shortcuts, plus plus division. So the combination of sales organization, distribution channel, and division will form a sales area. So we will see in the system, like how do we define our sales area and all, but just understand this, the combination that you will have. Okay, here also it is mentioned. Okay, so we have also mentioned this here, saying that the sales area is nothing but a combination of one sales organization, one distribution channel, one division. If you have multiple distribution channels and multiple divisions, let's say you have 10 distribution channels, then you need to have 10 different let's say sales areas. If you have 10 separate divisions, then you will have 10 different sales areas that needs to define. If in case you have 10 distribution channels and 10 divisions, then every distribution channel and every division, like every unique combination, has to be one sales area. So there will be multiple combinations that would be existing in the system in order for you to define the sales areas. So every unique combination of a sales organization, distribution channel and divisions will form a sales area. Okay, clear so far?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and these are your mandatory organizational units. And you have optional organizational units called sales office or the sales group. It's again, in your sales organization, if you have multiple offices is again, one location, who will be, it can be used for multiple purposes. But if in your sales organization you have multiple separate locations, or you have offices in different places, and you wanted to use just for the reporting point of view, this is mainly used. For example, you wanted to track maybe in your sales organization which sales office has done the better sales, anything that you wanted to have some reporting, not just based on your sales organization, because it becomes more generic. You wanted to see the let's say the business would like to see the which office is doing a better job, who is doing the better, who is bringing the more profits, or who is dealing with the customers in much more better way. If you want to use any of the reportings, then we will use this something called a sales office. Similarly, inside the sales office, again, you wanted to track which group of people are working, who are doing the better sales. Maybe if you have wanted to track this group of people, a department inside. Okay, you will have multiple groups that will be working with multiple customers. This group is responsible for, say, some 10 customers, another group is responsible for another customers. So if you want to have, again, if you want again subdivide your sales office, again you want to track it in a different way, then you will use this something called a sales group, and these both are optional ones that you will have. Okay, sales office and the sales group. Clear? So from the SD sales department point of view, these are all the organizational structures that you need: your sales organization, your distribution channel and division, then your optional sales office and the sales group. This is from the sales department, the first one that we have seen, right? The sales department. So that you will be defined. So where do you define them? So you go /n SPRO. Again, you can go to the path as well. Go inside your system in SPRO. Click on this IMG. You will come to this IMG or SPRO menu that we call them. Then just go inside here. Go to this enterprise structure. Inside enterprise structure, go to this definition. Then you have here financial accounting, your logistics general, your sales and distribution, material management, logistics execution and all. Inside financial accounting, you will have something called a company code. We'll just quickly check. So you just go to this company code, click on this copy, delete, check company code. Okay, you can directly create on your own itself without copying. But you will get some errors on the finance point of view. I would maybe explain you when you're practicing it. Initially, I would say just copy, delete, and copy from an existing company code and do it. But once you're familiar with all the screens and everything, right, I would recommend you not to copy it and create it on your own. Now I'm just copying a company code from one of the standard 1000 is one of the SAP provided company codes, and I will define my own company code. Might be I don't know, there'll be, because this is one of the demo systems, many people will be working on this system, so maybe I'll just define uh, just simply like that, a code. I'm defining, because if I use Tata or Tesla or any of this, it will be already there, because there will be a lot of people who will be working. So I'm just giving some random company code, like from copy from that company code to my new company code, which is ZMQC I given, and it is asking, do you want to copy all the GL accounts? Say yes. Then you want to copy all different local currency, okay? Then you can mention your currency as, maybe I'm just giving currently as euro. Click OK, certain data not copied, it's fine. Click OK, OK. Number range. Okay, number ranges sometimes it does not get copied, so I'll say no for the, whenever you get this number ranges, transport number ranges, say no, because if you try to copy the number ranges as well, it does not copy it well. But at the moment, I'm just saying it no. Then okay, this is another point I wanted to say. Whenever there is a pop-up that comes in here, system will ask you something called a customizing request or a workbench request. I'll explain you what is this customizing request, what is this workbench request, and just maybe in tomorrow's meeting. So I'll just explain this. I'm just saving it in something called a, everything that needs to be saved in something called a transport request here. Whenever you're defining anything, it will be saved in something called a transport request. This is, if you want to move from one system to another system, let's say from your development system to your quality to your production, then this transport is used by the basis people to move it. So every configuration that you do will be saved in a something called a transport request. All your, whatever you do in the IMG menu will be saved in a transport request, which will be moved from one system to another system. I'll explain in much more detail in tomorrow's class. Okay, you save. Now we'll just quickly see. I'm just creating a company code here. I'll just come back. You go to this edit company code details, and you can ZMQC, I guess. And here my ZMQC got created. Here also you have, if you don't want to copy and create, you can directly click on this edit company code. You have here the new entries. You can go here, you can you can create your own company code as well. There's no problem. You just go, you give the description of your company code, your city, country, currency, language, and so on and so forth. You can create it. Okay, so let me just take just give me 1 minute, guys. I wanted my organizational structure, because there's another thing that I was working on. So I'll just show you. Once you create it, I have a company code that I created some time back. For example, I have this company code called TBH. It has its own company name, what is the location, which country, what is the currency, language. Then you will have your address details, like your company, then your what is the street address and all. So this is how you define your company code. Again, whenever you're creating your own, just go there. Whenever you copy and create, it will be copied. Just go inside, you change your own descriptions, because you copied it from 1000, all the details from the 1000 gets copied. Like this Berlin, D, Euro, EN, this is because I copied from 1000. All the details come here. So once you copy it, you come here, you edit your details according to your requirement, then click on this address, change your address details as well. Like your street name, your, I think someone for 1000 only they have changed this, so that's the reason why you are able to see it. But you make your own country, you make your own region, you make your own postal code, address and all, like the title, the name, street name, and so on and so forth. Then save it. It saves in something called a transport request. I'll explain about the transport request in tomorrow's class. Then your company code gets created. Okay, that is how you create a company code. And tomorrow we'll create some details and we will see it. Similarly, you can create in the logistics general, we have something called define create plant. And in the sales and sales distribution, we have defined sales organization, distribution channel, and division would be there in the logistics general here division. But I'll explain where to create and all, how do we do it in tomorrow's class. We'll create and see. But for today, it was mainly to understand for you, like the organizational units that we will have, and then from the tomorrow's class we will create in the system parallelly as well, and we will see how do we create and how do we save it in the system, and so on and so forth.